I never thought that I was going to make a video talking about Worlds End Harem, a series that got a lot of attention when it was announced that it was going to get anime because of its very insane story that happens in this series. But there was also another reason why this series got a lot of attention, and it had to do with Crunchyroll. For those who don't know, this series was picked up by Crunchyroll, but if you decided to watch an episode from Crunchyroll, you will realize very quickly that this was heavily censored. It was so censored, in fact, that some scenes were just literally black screens, which was really confusing for a lot of people because it was very hard to believe that Crunchyroll was not aware of what this series was and what it was going to contain. But regardless, that's another reason as to why this series also got attention by the anime community. However, despite this series clearly going to have a lot of spicy moments and a lot of fan service, what made it actually very interesting to see with this series is how it actually tried to come up with a very interesting story. A story of what would happen if all the males of the world were killed by a virus that will only kill men. That was something that was very interesting to see with this series, and throughout the story, if you happen to have watched this series, you would know that there's actually more things going on behind the scenes, and that is where our protagonist tries to find out as to what really is going on. How was this virus created? What's its origin, and if there is by chance somebody doing this on purpose, meaning this wasn't an accident and that someone actually created this virus on purpose. That is something that the series tries to unfold as the story continues. But of course, because this is an ecchi, you know there's going to be a lot of fan service moments, and one of the things that really stands out the most is the fact that the protagonist finds out very quickly that because he was immune to the virus, he is now seen as a very important thing, because now he is tasked to try to get as many women pregnant as possible in order to bring back the male population. And the only way to do this is by, of course, with natural breeding, because it's stated early on that there were other methods that were used in order to bring back the male population, but it seems that the only option is natural breeding between a male and a female. However, the protagonist isn't the only male to survive this virus. In fact, it will be revealed that there's actually a few more that have been immune to the virus as well. Of course, because all of these people are new to this new world, the majority of them are assigned with an assistant to help them out try to live this new world that seems to be dominated by women. And one of these assistants is the person that we're going to talk about the most, this being Kamiya. Out of all the characters in this series, Karen stood out to me the most because of how good she was at manipulating everybody around her. And these are the kind of characters that always interest me, regardless if they're the protagonist of the story or the antagonist of the story. The characters that are good at mind games and know how to get the things they want without having to use violence, but just simply using their words, are always my favorite type of characters. And Karen was no exception, because in order to get the thing she wants, she wasn't just smart with her words, she was also smart in what particular action she had to do to get what she wanted. But before we talk about Karen more, we have to talk about the other character that is just as important as Karen, because they're the reason why Karen does the things she does. And this character is the other male character that survived this virus named Shota Dori, a character that we come to find out very quickly did not have a very easy life before this all happened. Before the virus took all the men away from the world, Shota was a victim of bullying. There was this particular group in his school that always targeted him no matter what. Not to mention that originally he did have somebody to talk to, and he considered this person to be a friend. However, one day when he sees him get bullied by this group of people, he steps in, only to realize that it was all for nothing. Not only would he become the new target, but this so-called friend would turn his back on him, completely ignoring him, and this would result in Shota having complete trust issues with anybody. The only person who he seems to be comfortable with talking is one of his teachers, when in reality the reason why he's so comfortable with this teacher is because he has feelings for her. But as the things couldn't get any worse, one day when Shota decides to check on a doctor to see about his health, he will have the devastating news that he has some sort of disease. The only way this disease can be dealt with is if he is put in cryosleep, and this would result in him having to be in that state for 4 or 5 years. While at first he's hesitant, he looks back at his life and sees that there's nothing particularly special that he has going. So ultimately he would decide to accept this and ends up going in cryosleep for the next 5 years. However, as soon as he wakes up, he notices that there's a female standing next to him congratulating for waking up, and this is none other than Karen, who of course he is shocked by seeing, as he has no idea who she is. but Karen introduces herself very quickly, saying that from now on she is going to be his assistant, as she informs him that even though it's only been 5 years, the world has changed drastically. And while she does give him basic information as to what is going on, like telling him that the majority of men have become extinct and how he is going to be taken care of by an organization known as UW, which stands for the United Women, you'll soon notice that she's going to have a habit of keeping information away from him. I mean, just in their few interactions early on, when Shota wants to know how old she is, she doesn't disclose it, as she states that it's top secret. But regardless, she does inform him that he is actually going to be staying at his school from now on in order to keep him away from the virus, not telling him what he's actually going to be doing in this school and what he actually has to do in this school. And the reason why she most likely did this is because she probably wanted him to be comfortable at first and not have any red flags as to what is actually going on. Not to mention that it seems that she has had some information about Shota's past, because when she clearly sees that Shota is uncomfortable at the fact that the classroom is filled with girls and is not happy with trying to relive high school once again, she is one step ahead, as she then tells Shota that she actually has somebody that is really looking forward to seeing him once again. And we see that it's in fact his teacher that he was comfortable with way before the whole situation of the virus even happened. And while of course he is happy to see her once again, and while Karen does give them some alone time to talk with one another, you very well know this is just the beginning of her plan, as the only reason why she probably did this to begin with was so that Shota did not resist having to live in this school. And this is for a proven where even though Shota has stated very clearly that he's confident that he's only going to have eyes for his teacher, regardless of the other girls that are in the school, Karen steps in to try to get him to be focusing more on the other girls of the school as well. Not only telling them what makes them special, but also telling them about their body features as well. This is so that hopefully Shota is able to see just how many beautiful girls are around him. Because like I stated earlier in the video, due to him being one of the few males that actually resisted the virus, it's not surprising that the UW taxed Karen to get him to start doing natural breeding with the other girls. But despite this being her major task she has to do, she realizes that she can't just do it just like that. She can't just pressure him into doing it, otherwise it's most likely she's going to be very hostile about it. So she does everything slowly, but there's actual progress being made. Her reuniting him with his teacher that he cares so much was just the first step, because they already formed a special connection. So obviously he's going to do it with his teacher with no hesitation whatsoever. And that's exactly what happens, as they are able to have some alone time together, and ultimately temptation gets the better of him as he does it with his teacher. And for a while this is the only person that Shota does anything with. But of course this isn't enough for Karen, as she needs him to start doing it with the other girls as well. And in these moments we not only see her manipulating Shota, but we also see how she's able to manipulate the other girls. And she does this by using competitions in order for the other girls to start getting competitive to see who is going to be the next to be with Shota. This is so not only are the girls starting to lose interest in Shota, but to also just show Shota just how many girls want to be next to him. And while he does eventually do it with another girl that goes by the name of Natsu, Shota is able to put the pieces together and starts to wonder, what is this school truly about? What does he truly have to do in this school? He actually does confront Karen for a moment, and Karen's actually amazed during this confrontation, because she states that despite her not giving him too much information, he was able to put the pieces together and figure out the true point of this school. And while in these moments Shota does show that he doesn't really want to continue doing this, because he feels like he's just using these girls' feelings and emotions for ulterior motives, this is where Karen shows just how smart she is, as she tells him that no matter what, this school was made for him. All the girls in the school have no hatred towards him, and one detail that is worth mentioning is that even before this school was made, the UW and Karen made sure to get girls that were really interested in Shota, and they did this by doing pre-selections, in which of course they got a bunch of girls and carefully chose who were the girls that showed a lot of interest on Shota, and girls who clearly had no problems with him doing things to them. And for Karen to show Shota just how serious she was, and just how every other girl was serious to be with him, she goes back to the classroom with him and tells all the girls in the class to undress right then and there. And with no hesitation whatsoever, all the girls do exactly what they were told to do. They start to undress, showing Shota very quickly that this was no joke, that everyone was being serious and that Karen wasn't playing around when she said that all the girls in their school were willing to do anything to be next to him. And while he is still conflicted during these moments, he starts to accept it and realize that maybe this whole thing isn't bad after all. As after this, he starts to become more intimate with a few of the girls. Not all of them, but there are a select few that he starts to actually be comfortable with and is perfectly fine doing it without being nervous whatsoever. But while Karen was trying to make him comfortable and fulfill every demand that he might want or need, she also showed that she was still in control. There were still moments that showed that while she was giving a lot of privileges, she made it very clear that she was still in charge. She still had control over him. Like for a moment, Shota actually had intentions of leaving the school, but she was very quick to find out about this and made sure that he had no reason to leave the school and that there was no way that he was going to leave the school unless it was an emergency or unless they were told to. Otherwise, he was going to stay in the school no matter what. But the other time was when she revealed to Shota that the teacher that he cared for so deeply, the person that he really was comfortable with being all the time, is no longer at the school. This of course is not surprising because there were a few hints that showed that this was bound to happen, as there were many moments in which Shota was confused why he wasn't allowed to see his teacher, and even in fact when he came into contact with her, she always had an excuse why they couldn't meet up and actually even encouraged him to actually go after the other girls, in which while there wasn't a specific scene that stated that this was Karen's doing, it wouldn't be surprising if this was something that Karen told her to always say and do, so that Shota's focus would be on the other girls. And of course, unsurprisingly, when Shota found out about this, he was visibly upset and really did show Karen that he was not happy with that decision. And it seemed that Karen knew this outcome was going to happen and knew that he was going to feel like this, but once again she had a smile on her face because this was all according to her plan. This is the outcome she wanted, as even though Shota was angry for a while, he actually starts to change his demeanor and change his perspective in a lot of things on the current situation he is at, because while yes, he is sad and angry a little that he lost his teacher, but at the same time, he's also starting to see that it doesn't really matter because he has a bunch of attractive girls that are all over him, and he realizes that at any given time, he could actually tell them what he wants them to do and they'll do it with no problem. And if you want more proof as to how Karen's actions and what she has done has completely changed Shota, this is best shown when he is confronting some of the things that happened in his past, like when a girl whose name is Shion actually is in his school. And this is something that's actually worth noting, is because this girl actually used to be part of his old school, and while she did see all the bullying that he was facing, she did nothing and completely ignored it as if nothing was happening. But now all of a sudden she's in this school, and the reason why she wants to get intimate with him is because of something that I forgot to mention earlier on, is that whoever gets intimate with the males who are seen as valuable because of the resistance to the virus, they actually do get privileges and their status skyrockets, and that's what Shion wants. And while at first Shota was not interested in her whatsoever, Karen decides to tell him that what if they actually make her do a bunch of things to show just how desperate she is to get Shota's attention and to fulfill her demands. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what Shion does. She does many of the things that Karen tells her to do to show just how serious she is, and this will lead to Shota giving her a chance. Now, while Shota does fulfill her demand, he also uses it as a perfect opportunity to get back at her, as a location that he chooses to get intimate with her is on the school rooftop, the same place that she saw him getting bullied and completely ignored it. And to make things even more insane, he actually invites a few other girls to just simply watch them do it, which of course for Shion is extremely embarrassing, but Shota informs her that this is the only way he's only going to fulfill her demands, otherwise the deal is off. And ultimately Shion accepts this and just goes through with with it. After this all happens, we see that Shota starts to become more confident, and we start to see that he actually starts to get used to this lifestyle, but Karen still wants more, as she tells him that he could start going crazy if he really wants to. Like, so far, according to her, everything that he's been doing is safe, so if he wants to fulfill some fantasy that he has, then he should go for it. And this is where Shota tells her that there's actually one person in particular that he wants her to bring to the school, and it's a girl that goes by the name of Erica. Erica actually was one of the members of the group that actually was bullying Shota in their old school. At first, Erica thinks that Shota wants to get intimate with her, but he has no interest in that whatsoever, and he doesn't want to do anything with her. He just wants to get some revenge, and he does this by first throwing a bucket full of water at her and then making her lick the wounds that were inflicted by the other people that were bullying him. But unsurprisingly, this was only part of his revenge, because there was more to come. Later on, we see that Erica is actually treated as a pet by Shota, since she's all chained up in his bedroom. And to make it even more worse, she's forced to always have to see or listen to the things he does with the other girls when they are in his bedroom. But we're not done yet, because we also come to find out that Erica, before she was even in this school, she actually was living a pretty terrible life, as she actually was a drug addict, and she actually needs medicine to control her urges to going back to drugs. And this is where Shota uses to his advantage, because he was actually given medicine just in case she was going back to her urges. And this of course led to Shota taking advantage of this medicine, because every time she needed the medicine, he will always put the medicine in his mouth, forcing her to do mouth to mouth with him in order to retrieve her medicine. And at this point, you can clearly see that Shota has become a completely different person than what he was originally in the beginning of the story. He was once a very timid, nervous, shy kid who had a lot of trauma inside of him because of him being a victim of bullying. But now we see a Shota that is confident, that realizes that he can do anything he wants with no consequences whatsoever, has no problems in getting revenge on the people he felt deserved it for what he had to go through. And even though he fully realizes that he is being used just so that he can make girls pregnant, he is perfectly fine with it, because he is enjoying every moment. As long as he's able to sleep with any girl he wants, then he is willing to do anything he is told. And this kind of attitude and this kind of perspective isn't something that he just had out of nowhere. This was influenced thanks to Karen. Everything that Karen did and said to him always felt calculated. This was probably the outcome that she wanted all along. She wanted Shota to be able to do anything with any girl with no problem whatsoever. And while it did take a lot of time and it did take a lot of planning for her to get this outcome, she overall achieved what she wanted. That's what really made her a menace. She did all this with a very calm and happy attitude. She never got angry at Shota, even if he was being difficult a few times. She was always positive and always fulfilled every demand he wanted, even if it was something that was not according to her plan, because as long as she was in his good side, that's all that mattered, because eventually she knew herself that she was going to get what she wanted very soon. It was only a matter of time. Everything she did would pay off. Now you may be wondering, why did she do everything that she did? What was Karen's ultimate goal? Well, that is something that we will come to find out in the very end, during once again another interaction between her and Shota, in which when Shota asks her what is her actual goal in doing all this, she tells him that she wants to be number one, not just in the UW, but in the entire world. That is the reason why she always tries so hard to rise up the ranks. That is the reason why she was always following every order from UW, not just to be seen as a very loyal person, but to eventually be able to get to the top. Everything that she did with Shota was just a way to impress the UW into showing them that she was a very useful person and that she was capable of a lot of things. But at the same time, she can also tell that Shota isn't stupid. He is also somebody that is very smart as well, and that's why during this conversation, she proposes that they should help each other out. When Shota asks her wouldn't it have been easy for her to have an easy life if she just got intimate with him, she says that even though if he has any intention of doing it with her, which she is perfectly fine doing it by the way, even if she does become pregnant and have a kid, she would still choose to be his assistant. And she uses soccer as an example, saying that even if she is a player, she ultimately always wants to be the coach, always being the one in charge, always doing things behind the scenes, always coming up with strategies. That is the role that Karen always wants to be at. Ultimately, that's what made Karen such a very interesting character to see, which was not expected. I did not expect to have a character like Karen in these type of series, but here we are. Karen was somebody that really knew what to do and always did things with the cards that she had in her hands. She was strategic, cunning, always chose her words and her actions carefully. She used Shota's past to not just benefit herself, but benefit Shota as he became a different person than what he used to. He used the girls in the school to not just show Shota how many girls were into him, but to also make sure the girls were competitive against each other in order to do whatever it takes to get Shota to like them. And even though we don't know too much about Karen's past and there's very little information about what she was doing before the virus happened, it's very hard to believe that this was her first time getting people to do what she wanted. This is a skill that takes a lot of time mastering, and this is something that's just very easy to do. You're not able to master this skill in just the blink of an eye. It takes a lot of time for you to know what you have and not have to do in order to get people to be by your side. And while you could argue that Karen did have some gratitude towards Shota, and there were moments that showed that she did care for him, like when he got injured after falling down, even though he tried to blow it off as nothing, Karen wanted him to get immediate medical attention. You could also use this as an argument as her just only prioritizing Shota is because she knew herself that if anything happened to Shota, then she was not going to have her way of getting to the top. She needed Shota to fulfill her overall goal. But no matter what the case is, Karen was still a very good manipulator, and she was still a very unique character to see on a series you didn't think was trying to have some sort of story. But Karen showed us that even in these type of stories, there could still be a character that can not only be memorable, but can steal any scene that they are involved in. And that's where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.